The Electric Power Sector Reform Act 2005 and the succeeding roadmap for Power Sector Reform 2010 set out to comprehensively transform the power industry through privatization, raise output to 40,000 megawatts by 2020, and attract investment and the global best players into the market. However, as Nigeria inches closer to a decade of privatized electricity power sector, renewed calls for a review of the power privatization have filled the air. With power available for commerce and social activities stock at about 4,000 megawatts, just slightly above the pre-privatization level, despite billions of dollars invested in new plants by the government and another billions of naira in subsidies, the failure of the exercise to deliver projected outcomes is undeniable and exerts a heavy toll on the economy. Well, I'm joined by Sydney Akimoladun, the CEO, Pace Solar. He joins us virtually. Hello, good to have you join us today.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
All right. Well, Nigeria will mark 9 years since it privatized the power sector by November 1. This privatization was expected to bring about more efficient operations, lower prices for all consumers, and better market functioning without government interference. You know, just about 9 years down the line, have we been able to achieve this?
Okay, thank you. 9 years is just like yesterday, but a whole lot of time is fast spent. November, and that was in 2013, I guess. And PHCN, which was formerly NEPA, was unbundled, and Nigerians were happy that at least the private sector will take over the industry from government, and then we'll get value for the investment. But between you and I, that hasn't been the case. A whole lot of factors, I think, must have played, and chiefly of those is the fact that the privatization process was done on a faulty foundation. And when you have something like that done on a faulty foundation, you expect the outcomes to almost be the same. To be fair, Nigerians haven't gotten anything much better. Maybe to just be modest a little bit from what we used to experience in the days of NEPA and PHCN. So 9 years, millions of dollars, like you said, going back the Obasanjo administration, now we're in the Buhari administration, more monies have been pumped in, but little has come out on the other side. Nigerians are still grappling with electricity problems.
Yes. Let me come in here. You said something about faulty foundation. You mind expatiating?
Yes. Number one is that we believe, some of us who are also in the sector and the industry believe some of the people who these companies were sold to, or who bought some of the shares, some sort of, were not qualified enough. There are speculations also that some of them are cronies of the government of the day at that time, and some of them are in the corridors of power, so they have opportunity to buy these companies and to set up, but they didn't really have the technical knowledge, the wherewithal to manage it. Take for example, we talk about privatization 9 years down the line. I can tell you for free that even in the estate where I stay, people still buy transformers, people still buy meters if they are faulty. People still replace cables.
Okay, that's
So if you talk about privatization, that's not the route you're supposed to take. So these are some of the challenges.
Mr. Sydney, let me come in here. We need to take a break now. When we come back, we'll continue from that thought, talking about how that in your estate, you end up buying transformers and all.
Okay.
We take a break now. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation with Sydney. Stay with us. future of cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrencies continue to draw a lot of attention from investors, entrepreneurs, regulators, and the general public. Many recent public discussions of cryptocurrencies have been triggered by the substantial changes in their prices, claims that the market for cryptocurrencies is a bubble without any fundamental value, and also concerns about evasion of regulatory and legal oversight. These concerns have led to calls for increased regulation or even a total ban. Further debates concern inter alia, the classification of cryptocurrencies as commodities, money, or something else, the potential development of cryptocurrency derivatives and of credit contracts in cryptocurrency, the use of initial coin offerings (ICO), employing cryptocurrency technology to finance startup initiatives, and the issue of digital currencies by central banks employing cryptocurrency technologies. Market size and opportunities. The total market capitalization of the 100 largest cryptocurrencies is reported to exceed the equivalent of 330 billion euros globally by early 2018. The total market capitalization of all cryptocurrencies together in that period peaked at an even higher 728 billion US dollars, dropping just 3 weeks later to approximately 360 billion US dollars. In any event, there are compelling reasons why cryptocurrencies should be under more scrutiny by regulators and supervisors. The threat of price volatility, speculative trading, hack attacks, money laundering, and terrorist financing all call for stricter regulation. Cryptocurrency has provided many avenues to financial freedom for many people. As the technology improves, the industry goes from strength to strength. Blockchain technology is now being used to enhance almost every single sector. From gaming to cross-border payments, crypto is now involved. Whilst Bitcoin and Ethereum cement themselves as the two powerhouses of the crypto world, many new exciting projects aim to aid real-world problems. Analysts estimate that the global cryptocurrency market will more than triple by 2030, hitting a valuation of nearly $5 billion. Whether they want to buy into it or not, investors, businesses, and brands cannot ignore the rising tide of crypto for long. As a matter of fact, the reward system for cryptocurrency creates an incentive to leverage on computing power, increasing the consumption of energy. For example, note that computational efforts of miners are costly, mainly because the proof of work calculations are power intensive, consuming more Glad to know you're still with us. Well, we still have with us Sydney Akimoladu, the CEO, Pace Solar. Thank you for joining us again.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. So before we went on that time out, you were talking about a lot of things, really, about what's happening or what's obtainable in your estate. Land on that thought so we can move on.
Yes. To be candid, this is not just peculiar to us. It's something that is happening all over the nation. I mean, you go to even emerging communities, and they are asked to pay for equipment that the investors in this industry are supposed to provide freely. Funny enough, let's even assume that the consumers now buy your equipment. Does it make it their property? No. So these are some of the things we're talking about. The second thing I also want to look at is the issue of metering. I mean, we still talk about estimated billing 9 years after the industry was privatized. Why are we still there? Does it mean that investors can't provide meters and adequately bill people for whatever they consume? So for me, that's a lacuna. I look at the fact too that there are so many potholes in the agreements signed between government and these investors. You won't believe it that the government in the agreement they signed with the people who bought into this industry, there is no room for discontinuing the contract, so to speak. And that's why it's not very easy for government to come hard on the investors in areas where they are not performing, or even say, okay, they want to re-engage on the contract, because there are no provisions for that
So
in the
now
agreement.
that
So
now that we found ourselves in this place, in a dire situation, what can be done
yes,
to, ameliorate the situation? How can we amend this? I mean, we've come to realize that there is a lacuna. So how do we address it?
yes, yes. The first thing on the top of my mind is for government to go back to the drawing board. A lot of persons have called for the whole contract thing to be readdressed. Maybe new persons should take over, but like I told you, there's so many issues with the contract. I think the government needs to go back to the drawing board with the investors and improve on whatever management contracts they've had with these people, and there should be timelines, there should be deliverables that are agreed upon. Unfortunately, government hasn't been very good when it comes to this. I say that because we have an ASU case, the Association of Staff of the Universities Lecturers, that has been on for about 6 months, and up to this morning we hear government probably has sued or taking ASU to court, the industrial court, whatever it is. So when it comes to negotiation and meeting the side where government needs to play their role, they haven't really done well. I don't know, but if you ask me, when the telecoms industry was privatized some years ago, we've seen improvement year on year, with that sector. But in some sectors like electricity, like aviation, like transportation, government hasn't really fared well. So we need to go back to the drawing board. I think that's the first thing to do. Sit down with these guys and probably maybe renegotiate the agreement and see how Nigerians can, benefit. We get tariffs being increased. I mean, the last time I checked, we're on what they call a premium paid brief.
But let me come in here. Looking at some of these challenges, really, what role do you think the decentralization will play in addressing these issues?
Are you meaning the initial privatization process?
I didn't get that. Okay, I'm saying, looking at all the issues that you've highlighted, some of the challenges with, the power sector generally, what role do you think the decentralization will play in, making things better? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello?
All right, so I'm asking, what role do you think the decentralization of power will help us, address some of these issues?
Yes, it should have helped us. That's the way I should respond. It should have helped us, because what's the whole essence of the privatization in the first place? Is to improve the efficiency and management of industry, is to ensure that the industry is viable enough for investors to come into, and more importantly, it should be able to provide and deliver on the promise, which is efficient, reliable, and effective power supply for Nigerians. That is what the whole thing should have done, but that's not what we have seen. So it brings me back to one major thing, and like I tell people, corruption is not when people steal money alone. Corruption is when the right thing is not done or the good thing is perverted. So that is what we've seen. So you look back into the industry, you ask yourself a lot of questions. What is government doing? Government is supposed to be like the watchdog. They're supposed to be like the regulators. But now they've given it to private owners, and they still can't manage how the private owners are running it. Okay? We have TCN, for example, which is still being managed by government, but we have ailing infrastructures. We have network of pole lines that are as old as, since Nigeria got independence. And so how do you expect generation to go through distribution and then, finally wheel to the consumers when the infrastructures are not there to get the power to the people? So there are a whole lot of bottlenecks from generation, distribution, then eventually up to transmission.
All right, I like that you already touched on it, because we're looking at the fact that we have generating capacity that has risen to 12,522 megawatt, well, mostly through a government-funded scheme. I mean, we need to put that there. And then just above 4,000 megawatts is delivered daily to homes and businesses And this is through the sole transmission and 11 distribution companies. Why is this so?
Okay, you talked about estimated, capacity, and that I've always known since I was born, 12,000. They keep branding that figure. But even the 4,000 that you mentioned, there are times in this country that it really goes very low, as much as as low as 2,000 thereabout. And so even the 4,000, we're not consistent with it. And the major challenge or the major problem you hear is that the Gencos accuse the discos of not utilizing the power that they've generated. The other time, it was a friction between government and these companies saying that the money that NBET, which is the bulk electricity distribution sector of the arm of government that manages how the power is being sold and monies are repaid, they complained that monies were not being paid back. And so if they use, for example, gas, which is a major component for which they generate electricity, and they can't pay the oil companies or the gas companies, then they are not able to buy again from those guys. So you see the whole lot of issues back and forth, and who are the...
Okay, I guess we're having a connection issue there. If you can hear me, do go ahead. But of course, we have Sydney right here talking about the challenges with power supply, and we're looking at the value chain really, apart from the fact that we have installed capacity to generate over 12,000 megawatts. We are doing about 4,000 megawatts on the average, and even that isn't consistent really to start with. And so we're looking at some of the issues really, why this is happening and how this can be solved. If you can hear me, do go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I can hear you, and I hope our viewers too can. So, as I was saying, it's very important that the value chain itself, each of the players are addressed, and whatever it is, if say for example the Gencos are able to produce maybe 6,000 megawatts, that should in itself translate to 6,000 megawatts in terms of the end users or the consumers, but it hasn't been the case because we have issues of metering, we have issues of poor distribution network, and of course, NBET itself needs to also, fulfill their promise by paying back whatever monies, have been accrued from people who have consumed this electricity, so that more can be done. All
right, thank you so much, Sydney Akimolado. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. I wish we had enough time to look at the value chain so we can address each one frontally, but I guess we'll have another time to do that. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Sydney. All right, we take a break now. When we come back, crude oil posts second weekly decline despite Friday's 4% pump. We'll be right now. We're back right now. Well, to the global oil market now, oil prices increased by around 4% at the last trading session of the week, helped by actual and threatened supply cutbacks. However, futures showed a second weekly fall as the prospect of demand was hampered by aggressive interest rate hikes and China's COVID-19 limitations. Despite the recovery on Friday, both crude benchmarks were still expected to decline for the week, with Brent down roughly 0.2% for the week after briefly reaching its lowest since January. WTI reported a 0.1% weekly drop. A minor reduction in OPEC Plus oil output plans reviewed this week also helped to maintain prices. Russian President Vladimir Putin has threatened to restrict oil and gas supplies to Europe if price caps are implemented. Well, that's our offering on Business Breakfast this morning. Many thanks for watching. I am Perpetua Fasomi Peter. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye for now.